welcome to Midnight Sleep Stories. Tonight, we begin a long, quiet journey through some of the most bizarre, forgotten, and strange punishments ever carried out in ancient Rome and beyond. But before we let the dusty scrolls unfurl and drift into the depths of the empire's darker traditions, take just a soft moment to press the subscribe button and tap like gently. Not only does it help this channel stay alive like an old Roman ruin under the moonlight, but it also helps you find your way back here next time you need sleep to sneak in softly. Now, close your eyes, let the world fade, and prepare for stories of punishment, cruelty, and the eerie logic of ancient laws, all told slowly, calmly, and without drama. Just sleep. The Vestal Virgins and the calm horror of being buried alive. Let us begin, slowly, as the last sounds of the day drift away. You are lying down, perhaps with a pillow beneath your head. Stone road, it is ancient. The stones are worn smooth from centuries of footsteps. The sky above you is gray. You are standing in front of a quiet building, the House of the Vestals. Behind you, the great Colosseum looms in memory, not yet built in our tale. The air smells faintly of incense and of old stone warmed by sun. Let us step inside. In ancient Rome, there were many punishments, some harsh, some strange, some dramatic, but perhaps none were as silent or as symbolic as the punishment of the Vestal Virgins, guardians of Rome's sacred flame. To understand how bizarre and calmly horrifying their fate could be, we must first understand who they were. The Vestal Virgins were a small, elite group of priestesses, usually 6 at any given time, who served the goddess Vesta, the deity of the hearth, the home, and the sacred fire. Their job, simple: keep the sacred flame in the temple of Vesta always burning. It could never go out, not ever. If it did, it was considered a terrible omen. Between the ages of 6 and 10, their families had to be noble, and the girls had to be physically perfect, without blemish or disability. It was said the goddess demanded purity in body and in bloodline. Once chosen, their lives changed forever. They were taken from their families, dressed in long white robes, their hair tied with sacred bands, and led into the Atrium Vesta, their new home. The ceremony was called the captio, meaning seizure. Though it was not violent, it was permanent. For the next 30 years, they would serve Vesta. 10 years of learning, 10 years of duty, 10 years of teaching the next generation. During this time, they were forbidden from marrying, forbidden from love, forbidden from engaging in any kind of sexual activity. Their lives became ritual. Wake before dawn, prepare the offerings, tend the flame, speak the prayers, maintain the silence. They were treated with respect, more than almost any woman in Roman society. They had power, status, influence. They could pardon criminals. They could own property. Their testimony was trusted in court. They even sat in special seats at the Colosseum. But all of that power came at a price. If a Vestal failed in her duties, especially the vow of chastity, then Rome responded not with loud judgment, but with a ritual as cold and slow as marble. If it was discovered, or even suspected, that a Vestal had engaged in sexual relations, she was tried by the Pontifex Maximus, the highest religious authority in Rome. There was no ordinary courtroom, no public defense. The Pontifex would question, the other priests would nod, there would be long silences, gentle robes rustling, a murmur of Latin prayers. If found guilty, the Vestal was sentenced to the most haunting fate of all. She would be buried alive. But here is where the Romans, lovers of law and loopholes, virgin outright, her blood could not be shed, and it was illegal to bury someone within the city walls. So they devised a solution. The city would quietly build a chamber underground, near the Colline Gate, outside the sacred boundary known as the Pomer. It was small, simple, a few feet wide, a few feet deep. Inside it, they placed a couch, a lamp, a small jug of water, some bread, a flask of oil, and a single dish of milk. They called this an act of mercy, that she would not die from cruelty, but from being left alone with the gods. Then came the procession. No crowds gathered, no public jeering. The people stood in eerie silence. Some cried softly. She wore her white robes, her eyes often downcast. The priests walked with her, chanting softly. At the sight, the pontifex would offer a final prayer, and the condemned woman would descend the short ladder into the chamber. Then the earth was sealed above her, stone by stone, quietly, without haste. The Romans believed they were not executing her, merely allowing the gods to make their judgment in private. She would lie on the couch, the oil lamp would flicker, the silence would settle, and she would wait for the end. This, to the Roman mind, was just. It upheld tradition. It satisfied law. It avoided blood. And yet, to modern eyes, and even to many Romans, it was among the most terrifying things imaginable. In over 1,000 years, only about a dozen Vestal virgins were ever punished this way. But the stories lingered. Their names echoed, like ghostly echoes, through the marble corridors of time. One was Postumia, were said to hold no fear, even as the earth closed above her. Another Tucha was accused falsely, and to prove her chastity, she carried a sieve full of water from the river Tiber to the temple, without spilling a drop. Myth or miracle. In Rome, the two were never far apart. It is easy to forget that punishment in Rome was not just a matter of cruelty or control. It was deeply tied to ritual, to theatricality, to cosmic order. The Vestals weren't just women. Her vow, the foundation of the empire, trembled. That is why the punishment was not noisy, not bloody, but slow, symbolic, nearly sacred in its silence. And so, as you lie there, breathing slowly, and perhaps drifting softly toward dreams, you might imagine that sacred fire still flickering in some forgotten temple, the footsteps of sandals in the forum, the whisper of robes, and beneath the earth, the quiet echo of a forgotten law, a sealed room, and a Rome that believed its soul burned in a single flame. Let us now pause and prepare for the next bizarre chapter of Rome's justice. The sack of shame, Pona Calais. Let us return, slowly, to the roads of ancient Rome. You are floating now, through a quiet Roman district, beneath the shade of cypress trees. The Tiber River glides nearby. Its water is dark, calm. It carries whispers of forgotten laws, and even more forgotten punishments. Tonight, we step into one of Rome's most peculiar and theatrical forms of justice. Not swift, not quiet, but intricate. It is known as the Pona Calais, the punishment of the sack. It was not used often, and never lightly. It was reserved for a crime Rome considered unthinkable. It was cosmically wrong. A wound, not just to the family, but to the very foundation of society. Because the Roman household, the father or pater familias, held absolute authority over his children, even into adulthood. He controlled their marriages, their property, even their legal lives. To raise a hand against that figure was to raise it against the gods of the household, the spirits of the ancestors, and the ancient customs of the republic itself. So what was done to the parricide? He was not whipped, nor beheaded, nor crucified. No, that would be too ordinary. Instead, a ritual was enacted, one of symbolism, one of strange creatures, leather, rope, and silence. First, the guilty party would be stripped of all rights. He was no longer a Roman citizen. He was something else, an untethered thing, not even a man anymore, just a disruption. Then a sack was prepared, made of coarse leather, stiff, heavy, wet. It was large enough for a body, and not just his body. Into the sack would go animals, but not just any animals. A dog, a snake, a monkey, and a rooster. The choices were deliberate, symbolic, ritualistic. Each represented a twisted reflection of the crime. The dog, once loyal, now wild and dangerous. The snake, ancient symbol of betrayal and deception. The monkey, chaotic, mocking nature, a shadow of humanity. And the rooster, the morning cry, a witness to rebirth and guilt. Bound together, these creatures would thrash, bite, and claw in terror. Then the man would be sewn inside the sack with them, alive, the opening tied shut, the air thick, the space tight, the sack soaked so it would sink quickly, and finally the bundle of man and beast would be thrown into the river, the Tiber, most often, but in other places, any river deep enough, and the punishment would be complete. No grave, no monument, no name. He would vanish beneath the water, a disgrace lost to the current. It may sound like a myth, a strange tale told to frighten children, but Pomacole was very real, and it was not invented in a single day. Its roots stretch back into the early Roman Republic, when law and religion were intertwined. The earliest mention comes from around the 2nd century BCE. By this time, Rome was expanding, its laws growing more formal, but its sense of the sacred still ran deep. In the earliest versions of the punishment, the sack included only a dog and a snake. Over the centuries, more animals were added. Some sources say it was during the reign of Hadrian that the monkey and the rooster became common, and though rare, the punishment was always carried out with full ritual. The condemned was made to wear wooden shoes, so his feet would not touch the ground, for he was considered unclean. He was whipped with rods, but not unto death, only as a signal of disgrace. He was gagged, so he could not speak blasphemy, and only then was he placed in the sack. But let us pause now and consider why. Why such elaborate cruelty? Why not simply kill the offender? The answer, in part, lies in Rome's relationship with law as symbol to the Romans. Law was not merely about consequences. It was about balance between human actions and cosmic harmony. Parricide was seen not just as a violation of law, but as a rupture in the sacred order of family, tradition, and ancestry. And so, the punishment had to restore that balance. The sack isolated the killer. He was not given the dignity of touching earth, of dying on land, or of being burned and buried. The animals represented chaos, a twisted mirror of the Roman household instead of family. He died with beasts. The river carried away the disgrace. Like a wound cleaned and flushed from the city, it was a kind of ritual purification, and though horrifying to modern ears, to the Romans it made sense. It was justice, performed in full. Let us now look at a few known cases. One of the most famous comes from the reign of the Emperor Hadrian. In the 2nd century CE, a young man was accused of killing his father. The case drew wide attention, and after his guilt was established, he was condemned to the sack. Cassius Dio, the historian, notes that Hadrian insisted the sentence be carried out in full, even though the crime had taken place in a distant province. This shows that Pona Kole was not just a punishment, it was a message, a performance for the state. In another case, under the Emperor Constantine, around the 4th century CE, we see a variation. By then, Christianity had begun to influence Roman law. Constantine modified the penalty. Instead of being thrown into the river, the condemned could be fed to wild beasts in the arena if the proper animals for the sack could not be found. Even in this altered form, the idea remained: the parricide must die in disgrace, in chaos, in spectacle. But what of the sack itself? Its name, Cullius, is simple. It means leather bag. It was the same word used for large wine or grain sacks, and yet, in this context, it became something else entirely. In later years, the sack took on a metaphorical role in Roman literature. Poets and satirists would refer to someone's ideas as worthy of the sack, meaning foolish, dangerous, or perverse. And over time, as Rome declined, so too did the ritual. By the end of the 5th century, Pona Kole had nearly disappeared, and yet it returned. In the 13th century, during the rule of Frederick II in the Holy Roman Empire, the punishment was revived. The animals varied. The ritual was simpler, but the idea remained the same. Even in medieval Europe, the symbolic power of the sack, of being sewn up with beasts and thrown into the water, held a strange grip on the imagination. It was used again in parts of Germany, even as late as the 18th century. But eventually, the sack was retired. It faded, not with a cry, but with a sigh. Too slow, too complex, too theatrical for the modern world. Still, the river remembers, and somewhere, perhaps in the depths of the Tiber, there remains the echo of the splash, the sack, the swirling bodies, and the silence afterward. Damnatio ad bestias, the quiet horror of being fed to the beasts. Tonight, as the stars blink slowly over the Mediterranean, we drift again into Rome. Not the marble Rome of emperors and poets, but the public Rome, the noisy, ritualized, structured world of punishment as performance. Let us step now into a quiet corner of one of the loudest places in ancient history, the arena, and within it, we explore the punishment known as damnatio ad bestias. The name means, simply, condemnation to the beasts. But behind that short phrase lies an entire system of ritual death, of public theater, of symbolic violence turned into political reassurance. As always in Rome, the violence was never random. It was methodical, legal, and somehow deeply theatrical. Let us begin, not with the sentence, but with the space. Imagine now the Colosseum. But before it was called that, it was once known as the Flavian Amphitheater. Built in the 1st century CE, it could hold over 50,000 people. Its rows of stone seats were divided by class. senators up front, slaves near the top and in the middle, the Roman people, the populus, below them. At the heart of the structure, a stage of sand. Beneath that sand, a maze of lifts, cages, pulleys, and trapdoors, all used to orchestrate death. The games held here were not just entertainment, they were justice made visible, or so Rome believed. The punishment of damnatio ad bestias was rarely a punishment for theft, or for casual crimes. It was reserved for those the state considered a threat. Rebels, enemies of the state, prisoners of war, religious minorities, slaves who rose against masters, and in some cases, political dissidents. Sometimes, the condemned had committed a crime, other times, they were simply in the way. Either way, the sentence was clear: death by animal. But even this was never done quickly. There were procedures, rituals, and preparations. Days before the games, the condemned would be held underground in the carcer, a stone chamber beneath the arena. Here they would wait in silence, listening to distant cheers and the growls of animals being starved for the spectacle. Lions, leopards, bears, hyenas, dogs, bred for fury. Each had its own cage, each had its role, and the prisoners waited. Some prayed, some wept, others simply stared. The Romans called it justice in daylight. We might call it something else entirely. The moment of execution began with ritual. The editor, the producer of the games, would signal the start. Trumpets would sound. The doors would open. Sometimes the condemned were dressed in costumes to represent myths or enemies of Rome. Other times they were sent out naked, unarmed, or given wooden swords as a cruel joke. The crowd would cheer. Vendors sold snacks, and from a hidden gate a lion might appear. Slowly, its ribs visible, its breath rising in clouds, or a bear, slow, heavy, groaning with hunger. The condemned would face the beast. There was no escape, no shield, no chance. This was not combat. This was punishment. But why? Why such a method? Because, to Rome, this was not about the individual. It was about order. The arena was the state's theater. The people gathered not just to be amused, but to be reminded of what happened to those who threatened the structure. It was a civic ceremony. Death as a symbol, a message carved into the minds of thousands, all at once. And unlike private execution, this was public memory. The sounds, the dust, the screaming of man and beast, all woven into a performance of imperial control. Yet, even within this cruelty, there were layers. Some condemned prisoners were granted a quick death, a sword to the throat before the beast arrived. Others were left to be chased, tormented. Sometimes the beasts were kept away. Until the crowd was restless, the execution could last seconds, or be drawn out across hours, and the crowd judged it like a play. Was the prisoner brave? Did he die well? Did the lion hesitate? Did the elephant miss its mark? All of this became part of the ritual. One of the earliest uses of damnatio ad bestias occurred during the Republic, but it reached its most elaborate form under the emperors, particularly during the reigns of Titus, Domitian, and Trajan. Trajan, especially, used the games not only to celebrate military victories, but to remove prisoners of war with efficiency after his campaigns in Dacia. Through this reinforced its greatness, its dominance, its control. But not all stories ended as expected. There are tales, perhaps exaggerated, of beasts, who refused to attack, of lions who lay down beside the prisoner, of bears who wandered off. In such cases, the execution was paused. The prisoner might be removed, only to face death later in another form. These moments disturbed the narrative. A lion refusing violence was not part of the show, so Rome, ever theatrical, would write a new scene. And what of those watching? Did they cheer? Did they feel pity? Did they sleep that night? Some, perhaps, did not, but many did. That this was not brutality, it was civilization enforcing its peace. To threaten the state was to face the beast beneath the laws. And so the people watched and clapped. The punishment lingered. Under Septimius Severus, it was still used. Under Diocletian, it became part of the Christian persecution. Believers were thrown to beasts as enemies of the gods. As Christianity rose, the practice faded. Public executions continued, but the beasts were removed. By the 6th century, the Colosseum fell silent. Its tunnels no longer echoed with growls. Its floors grew dusty. The beasts forgotten. Idea lingered. Damnatio ad bestias remains one of Rome's most infamous punishments, and perhaps one of its most revealing. It showed how far a state would go to make death into spectacle, to turn punishment into story, and to place the individual, nameless, voiceless, into the jaws of empire. The sun sets now over the Roman ruins. The arena is quiet, but somewhere, in the stillness of stone, a breath remains, the echo of a lion, the shuffle of chains, the distant murmur of 50,000 spectators, and the silence that follows. When Rome punished its own soldiers, tonight we drift far from cities and palaces. We do not linger in marble halls or near the warmth of the Roman baths. Instead, we walk slowly to the edge of an old military camp. The wind is soft, the dust is still. A faint fire burns low in the distance, and nearby, thousands of men lie sleeping in rows, soldiers of the greatest empire the ancient world ever knew. But not all of them will wake, because tonight we remember one of the most feared punishments ever used by the Roman legions, a punishment called decimation. The name sounds modern, familiar, even casual. We use it often in speech to describe great loss, destruction, ruin. But in ancient Rome, decimatio had a precise meaning. It meant to kill 1 out of every 10 men in a unit, a punishment not for one, but for many. And perhaps most chilling of all, the execution was not done by generals or judges, but by the soldiers themselves. Rome's military was strict, methodical, and deeply structured. Each soldier belonged not just to a unit, but to a shared identity, a brotherhood bound by loyalty and silence. They trained together, ate together, slept together, and when punished, were punished together. The Romans believed in discipline as the foundation of power. A legion could not be allowed to disobey. It could not retreat. It could not break ranks. And when it did, Rome answered in a language made not of words, but of numbers. The process was ritualistic. After a serious offense, usually mutiny, cowardice, or desertion, a unit might be selected for decimation. The men were gathered, divided into groups of 10. No one knew what would happen next until it began. In each group, one man was selected by lot, often by drawing, stones, or marked tokens. He had not necessarily done anything wrong. His name was not chosen for guilt, only for fate. And then the remaining 9 men were ordered to kill him, not with swords, not with spears, but with clubs, with stones, with whatever was at hand. The instruments were brutal, the act even more so. The man stood still. The 9 approached. Some wept, some turned their heads, but they obeyed, because to disobey was death. The first blow might miss, the second might not. Eventually, the body would fall, and the process repeated over and over until 10% of the unit was gone. It was not a punishment designed to solve a crime. It was a punishment designed to reset the mind, to restore fear, to reassert control, to show, without a doubt, that the Roman state would not tolerate failure, even shared failure, even collective shame was worthy of blood, and that shame would be wiped away by a ritual of numbers, 1 in 10, no more, no less. We know of several famous uses. One of the earliest recorded was under Crassus, the enormously wealthy Roman general who shared power with Caesar and Pompey. In 71 BCE, during the brutal campaign against the slave revolt of Spartacus, Crassus' legions suffered a major setback. They panicked, they fled, and he, in response, decimated the unit. As the soldiers beat their fellow comrades to death, the lesson took root. No one fled again. The legion recovered discipline, and Crassus, satisfied, continued the campaign. But not every general used decimation. Julius Caesar, the most famous of Rome's commanders, often avoided it. He believed more in loyalty than fear, inspiration over terror. He punished failure, yes, but often with dignity, not blood. Still, the threat of decimation always remained like a ghost, whispering in the background, a sword hanging in the air, never dropped, but never sheathed. Other commanders, less merciful, turned to decimation as a symbol of total power. In later centuries, as Rome struggled with internal conflict and rebellion, even emperors themselves allowed legions to be purged in this way. It was a reminder that the body of Rome would not allow rot, that any infection, even minor, would be burned away, publicly, ritualistically, without exception. The soldiers, for their part, did not speak of it. Decimation was not discussed, it was endured. The survivors carried on. They rebuilt camp, they prepared food, they cleaned the blood from their hands, and they waited for the next order. They were not comforted, they were not praised, they were simply left alive, and in that strange silence, the power of the ritual grew even greater. Imagine a quiet Roman camp after such a night. The fires still flicker. Some tents are dark, others never filled again. No trumpet sounds, no sermon is given, but all who remain understand. The message was clear. Rome did not need to shout. Its most powerful commands were whispered through fear. Over time, historians have questioned how often decimation really occurred. Some believe it was rare, a last resort. Others suspect it was more common, especially in distant campaigns far from the Senate's eyes. What we do know is that even the threat of it was enough to control thousands. One commander could rule legions with nothing more than the memory of what might come, the memory of 10 soldiers, one of whom never returned. Centuries later, the word lived on, and though its original meaning faded, the feeling remained. Even now, the word decimate carries a chill. It means something terrible has happened, that something has been lost. Even if we forget the origin, the weight survives. Let us return one last time to the quiet edge of the Roman camp. Let us walk slowly among the rows of sleeping soldiers. Some dream, some stir, a few cannot sleep at all. They think of the moment the lots were drawn. They remember the sound of the stones, and though they live, they carry the death with them, a piece of Rome's discipline, a fragment of its fear, a memory wrapped in silence. In Rome, there were no second chances for a broken line, no appeals for the unit that faltered. There was only the correction, 1 in 10, always in 10, and always remembered by those who survived, even in sleep, even now. Ancient Roman baths, rituals, relaxation, and strange customs. Imagine yourself walking slowly through the grand entrance of an ancient Roman bathhouse. The stone walls rise tall, cool to the touch. The air is warm, thick with steam and the scent of oils and herbs. Water flows gently through marble basins, and soft murmurs fill the air. This is a place where the Romans did not just cleanse their bodies, they cleansed their minds and spirits. Roman baths, or thermae, were much more than simple bathing spots. They were social centers, places to meet friends, discuss politics, relax after a long day, or simply enjoy moments of peace. For many Romans, the bathhouse was a second home, a refuge from the bustle of city life. The bathing ritual was a slow, deliberate process. It began with the apoditerium, the changing room. Here, visitors carefully undressed and stored their belongings in cubbyholes or handed them to slaves. The marble benches felt smooth beneath weary bodies, and soft light filtered through small windows. Next came the warm tepidarium, a room designed to acclimate the body to heat. The air was gentle here, not too hot, allowing muscles to relax and pores to open slowly. The walls were decorated with colorful mosaics depicting mythological scenes or serene landscapes, inviting the mind to wander. From there, bathers moved to the caldarium, the hottest room of all. Steam rose like a thin fog, wrapping around limbs and softening every muscle. Pools of hot water beckoned, and people submerged themselves slowly, savoring the warmth. Some used strigils, curved metal tools, to scrape away dirt and sweat, part of the ancient cleansing ritual. After warming up, it was time for the frigidarium, the cold pool. The shock of cool water awakened the senses and refreshed the skin. Romans believed this sudden change was good for circulation and health. Bathers often repeated the cycle several times, alternating between warm and cold rooms. But the baths were not just about water and steam. They were centers of entertainment and learning. Some bathhouses included libraries, gardens, and even lecture halls. Philosophers and poets would sometimes speak to attentive crowds, while musicians played soft melodies to enhance the calm atmosphere. Interestingly, bathing was a communal activity, often done in the nude. This openness fostered a sense of equality and camaraderie. Senators rubbed shoulders with merchants, slaves with freedmen. Everyone shared the simple human need for cleanliness and comfort. The baths also had their strange customs. For example, some Romans believed that wearing special amulets while bathing could ward off evil spirits. Others enjoyed applying scented oils mixed with perfumes before entering the water, creating a fragrant cloud that lingered long after the bath. One peculiar ritual involved the pylae, small balls made of wax or lead thrown into the pools for good luck or as playful bets. Bathers might challenge each other to find or retrieve these tokens beneath the water, turning the experience into light-hearted fun. Yet there were rules, too. Bathers were expected to behave respectfully, and some bathhouses had attendants to maintain order. Excessive noise or inappropriate conduct could lead to being asked to leave. Hygiene was taken seriously, not only for health, but to preserve the sacredness of the space. The Roman baths were also linked to health practices. Physicians sometimes recommended visits to certain pools or steam rooms for therapeutic purposes, treating ailments from arthritis to respiratory problems. The interplay of heat, cold, and massage was seen as a holistic way to balance the body. As the sun set over the city, many Romans would linger in the baths until late, enjoying the peaceful rhythm of water and conversation. The soft glow of oil lamps illuminated the marble, and gentle laughter echoed against stone walls. In this world of warmth and calm, the worries of daily life seemed to fade. Time slowed, the mind rested, and so the baths were not just places to wash, they were places to breathe, to relax, to be human. As we move deeper into the world of Roman baths, it is important to notice the rhythms of daily life there. Many Romans visited the baths not just for hygiene, but as a regular habit, sometimes twice a day. It was common to begin the morning with a refreshing visit to the thermae, preparing the body and mind for the day ahead. Others preferred the evening hours. Winding down from work and socializing with friends, the baths were often crowded, filled with the gentle murmur of voices, footsteps on polished marble, and the occasional splash of water. The variety of rooms offered different experiences. The Laconicum was a dry, sweating room, much like a modern sauna. Here, the dry heat would help relax tense muscles and clear the skin. The Natatio was an open-air swimming pool, large and often beautifully decorated. On warm days, bathers could swim freely beneath the sky, feeling the sun on their backs and the water enveloping them. In addition to the physical pleasures, the baths were places of intellectual and artistic pursuits. Poets recited verses, philosophers debated ideas, and artists displayed sculptures and mosaics, turning the space into a temple of culture. One particularly interesting custom involved massage. Skilled bath attendants would use oils and gentle strokes to ease fatigue and improve circulation. This was not just a luxury, but a common part of the bathing experience. The oils themselves were often infused with herbs and fragrances, such as lavender, rosemary, or myrrh. Their scents filled the air, creating a calming atmosphere that lingered long after the bath. Roman baths also served as places to meet potential business partners or even find romance. The social aspect was as vital as the bathing itself. Despite the openness and relaxation, some rules governed behavior. For example, certain times of day might be reserved for men or women exclusively, preserving privacy and respect. At other times, the baths were co-ed, allowing for mingling among the city's residents. While today we often think of bathing as a private act, for the Romans it was an essential part of communal life, a chance to connect, relax, and renew. The architecture of the baths themselves reflected this importance. Grand halls with towering columns, intricate mosaics depicting sea life or gods, and heated floors showed the care and resources invested in these spaces and beneath the surface. A complex system of aqueducts and furnaces ensured the flow of hot and cold water, the steam, and the comfort that visitors enjoyed. The baths were a marvel of engineering and culture combined, beyond their physical structure and daily routines. Roman baths held a spiritual and cultural significance that permeated the lives of the people. For many, the act of bathing was more than cleanliness. It was a form of renewal, a way to wash away not just dirt, but also worries and the burdens of the day. In some baths, small shrines dedicated to gods like Neptune or Minerva reminded visitors of the divine presence. Prayers and offerings were sometimes made before entering the water, seeking protection or blessings. This ritual aspect gave the baths a sacred atmosphere. Despite their social and recreational functions, visitors often followed specific customs, believed to bring health and fortune. For example, tossing a coin into the water was thought to ensure a safe return or good luck. The water itself was considered healing, infused with the power of the gods and nature. One of the more curious customs involved the use of pets. Romans sometimes brought small dogs or birds to the baths, companions that shared in the relaxation. It was common to see a small dog lying lazily by the side of the pool, watching the world with calm eyes. Food and drink were also part of the experience. Light snacks and herbal teas could be enjoyed in adjacent rooms or courtyards, prolonging the peaceful moments. The baths were places where time slowed, conversations deepened, and the mind wandered gently. Even the architecture encouraged this calm. Curved benches invited rest. Fountains added the soft, soothing sound of flowing water, and the play of light on polished stone created patterns that seemed almost hypnotic. For the Romans, these moments were sacred, a chance to reconnect with themselves and their community, a time to forget the troubles of war, politics, or labor, and simply be among the visitors. Some came seeking more than mere relaxation. Athletes, gladiators, and laborers used the baths to heal aching muscles, soothe bruises, and prepare their bodies for upcoming challenges. The warm water helped ease tension, while massages restored strength. The baths were also places of learning. Some centers had rooms where teachers and students gathered to discuss philosophy, mathematics, or rhetoric. Imagine soft voices debating ideas while outside. Water trickled in quiet fountains. In such moments, the baths became a sanctuary for both body and mind, a rare harmony between the physical and intellectual worlds. The baths also encouraged mindfulness, though the Romans would not have used that word. They provided a space where the ordinary clamor of the city was muffled, replaced by the rhythm of gentle footsteps, murmured greetings, and the steady flow of water. Visitors might lose themselves in thought, watching the flicker of oil lamps on mosaic floors, or listening to the distant song of a lyre. And when conversation waned, silence was welcomed, as comfortable as the warm stone beneath them. Interestingly, not all baths were grand complexes. Smaller neighborhood baths existed, serving as intimate retreats for daily visitors, no matter the location. The baths were a place where people could rest, renew, and reconnect. Ancient Roman cuisine, foods, flavors, and dining. Rituals. Imagine a slow walk through the bustling market of ancient Rome. The air is filled with a mix of aromas, sweet fruits, freshly baked bread, herbs, and spices from distant lands. Vendors call softly, offering their goods to passersby. This is the start of a journey into the daily life of Roman food. Roman cuisine was a rich tapestry of flavors and textures. While the wealthy feasted on exotic dishes, the common people enjoyed simple, hearty meals. But regardless of social status, food was central to Roman life, a way to connect, celebrate, called yentaculum. This might include bread dipped in wine or honey, fresh fruit, and sometimes cheese or olives. Nothing rushed, a gentle start to the day. Lunch, or prondrum, was usually modest, leftovers from the previous day's dinner, perhaps with fresh vegetables or cold meats, eaten quietly during work breaks. But the real feast came at cena, the evening meal. This was not just eating, it was a ritual. Families and friends gathered to share stories and laughter, often reclining on cushions around low tables. The food was served in courses, starting with appetizers like olives, eggs, and small fish. One of the most famous Roman dishes was gustum, or starter dishes, meant to awaken the palate. These might include stuffed dormice, a delicacy, or snails cooked with herbs. Romans loved combining flavors, balancing salty, sweet, sour, and bitter tastes. Main courses could be rich and varied. Roast meats, pork, lamb, and poultry were common among the wealthy. Fish and seafood, fresh from the Mediterranean, featured often. Vegetables like cabbage, leeks, and beans provided a softer counterpoint. Romans also enjoyed sauces, especially garum, a fermented fish sauce that added a salty umami flavor to many dishes. It was an essential ingredient in many recipes. Dining was accompanied by wine, usually diluted with water. It was not just a drink, but part of the ritual, with toasts and songs. The quality of wine varied greatly, from common table wine to exquisite vintages reserved for the elite. The dining room, or triclinium, was a place of comfort and display. Walls were decorated with frescoes, floors paved with mosaics. Guests reclined on couches, supported by their left arms, while their right hands were free to eat. The meal could last for hours, with entertainment, poetry, readings, music, or philosophical conversations. Despite the indulgence of some, many Romans ate simply bread, olives, cheese, and fresh vegetables formed the backbone of the common diet. Pools, a porridge made from barley or wheat, was a staple. Food reflected the diversity of the empire. Spices and ingredients traveled from the farthest provinces, pepper from India, dates from North Africa, even exotic fruits from the east. Markets bustled with life, and cooking was an art passed down through generations. Roman kitchens were bustling places, filled with the sounds of chopping, sizzling, and quiet conversations. Large clay pots bubbled over open fires, while cooks prepared ingredients with care and skill. Herbs like rosemary, thyme, and dill were staples, used to flavor meats and stews. Cooking techniques varied: roasting, boiling, frying, and baking, each bringing out different textures and tastes. Bread was baked daily, often in communal ovens, its smell filling neighborhoods with a warm, comforting aroma. Meals were occasions for ritual as well as nourishment. This act connected the family to their ancestors and the divine, imbuing the meal with a quiet sacredness. Many dishes were shared communally, passed from hand to hand. encouraging a sense of unity and belonging. Food was not just fuel, it was a way of life. Roman banquets, especially among the elite, could be extravagant affairs. Dishes might include peacock, flamingo tongues, or exotic spices, all served with careful presentation. The goal was often to impress guests, showing wealth and sophistication. Yet, even in such settings, conversation remained gentle, voices soft, stories unfolding slowly like the courses served. Among the common people, food was simpler, but no less meaningful. A typical meal might include pulse, a thick porridge made from spelt or barley, sometimes enriched with vegetables, or small amounts of meat. Fresh fruits like figs, grapes, and apples were enjoyed seasonally, bringing natural sweetness to the table. Olives and olive oil were staples, used not only in cooking, but also as a condiment. Olive oil was prized for its flavor and versatility. Poured over bread or used to dress salads. Cheese, often made from goat's or sheep's milk, creamy contrast to other dishes. Romans also loved sweets, but sugar as we know it. Instead, honey was the primary sweetener. Honey-glazed fruits, pastries made with nuts and dried fruits, and simple cakes offered gentle delights. Dining rooms often featured a large bowl of moratum, a spread made from herbs, garlic, cheese, and olive oil, eaten with bread. In wealthier homes, cooks followed recipes recorded by famous authors like Apicius, who collected culinary knowledge and shared secrets of flavor, combinations, and techniques. Meals could be an exploration of textures, soft, crunchy, smooth, and chewy, all balanced to create harmony on the palate. As night deepened, many Romans enjoyed commissatio, a drinking party after dinner where wine flowed freely, and songs or poetry filled the air. But even then, the mood remained calm and reflective. These gatherings were not loud or chaotic, but gentle celebrations of friendship and art. The culture of food in ancient Rome reminds us how deeply humans connect through the simple acts of sharing and savoring. And so, as we close our eyes tonight, imagine the soft clinking of cups, the muted laughter, and the fragrant steam rising from a bowl of warm soup. A world where food was a path to peace, connection, and quiet joy. Roman meals were also shaped by seasons and festivals. Certain times of the year brought special ingredients and dishes tied to celebrations of the gods or the changing cycles of nature. During Saturnalia, for example, banquets were abundant, and the usual social order relaxed as gifts were exchanged, and feasting filled the streets. The importance of food in Roman culture extended beyond mere sustenance. It was deeply woven into social rituals, family bonds, and even politics. Invitations to dine were gestures of friendship and alliance, and hosting a meal was a sign of status and generosity. In some homes, the triclinium, the dining room, was the heart of the house. Here, family and guests reclined on couches, listening to soft music or the quiet murmur of conversation. The act of reclining while eating was both a symbol of leisure and a physical practice to aid digestion. Among the lower classes, eating was more functional but still meaningful. Simple wooden tables or benches replaced the luxurious couches, and meals were quicker but shared with warmth and companionship. Food preparation was often a communal activity. Families worked together in kitchens, exchanging recipes and stories. Street vendors and food stalls offered ready meals to workers and travelers, keeping the city alive with the scents and tastes of Roman life. Bread remains central to most meals, symbolizing life and sustenance. Bakers were respected artisans, and fresh bread was treasured. The flavors of Rome were a blend of the familiar and the exotic. Spices like cumin, coriander, and pepper traveled from distant lands, adding excitement to everyday dishes. Herbs such as mint, basil, and oregano lent freshness and depth. Garum, the famous fermented fish sauce, was the secret ingredient in many recipes. Its pungent flavor beloved across social classes. Sweets and desserts often involved dried fruits, nuts, and honey, offering natural sweetness that balanced savory courses. The careful balance of tastes, sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and umami, reflected a sophisticated understanding of flavor. As we slowly drift away from the warm kitchens and bustling markets, imagine the final moments of a Roman meal, the soft clatter of dishes being cleared away, the gentle conversation fading into comfortable silence, the feeling of fullness and calm, the sense that this simple act of sharing food is a thread, connecting people through time. From ancient Rome to now, the rituals of the table remind us that in quiet moments we find peace. And perhaps, as you close your eyes tonight, you can taste the warmth of honeyed figs, smell the herbs in a gentle stew, and feel the calm of a world made gentle by food. Roman gardens and leisure, nature's calm in the empire. Close your eyes and imagine stepping into a Roman garden, a quiet sanctuary tucked away from the noise of the city. Stone paths wind gently beneath your feet, bordered by soft moss and delicate flowers. The air is fragrant with the scent of lavender, rosemary, and blooming roses. Birds sing softly in the trees, and the distant sound of water trickling in a small fountain soothes your mind. Roman gardens were more than just patches of green. They were carefully designed spaces, blending nature and art, created for rest, contemplation, and quiet pleasure. For the Romans, these gardens offered a refuge, a place to escape the heat and bustle of the city and find peace in nature's embrace. Many wealthy Romans owned lavish private gardens, complete with shaded colonnades, statues, and ponds filled with fish. But smaller gardens existed too, in homes large and small, each bringing a touch of tranquility. The Romans loved plants, not only for their beauty, but for their fragrance and symbolism. Laurel trees, olive groves, and cypress-lined paths. Herbs like thyme and mint grew in neat beds, ready for cooking or healing. Imagine walking slowly through these gardens, touching leaves and petals gently. Perhaps you pause by a marble bench, resting your hands on the cool stone, listening to the soft hum of bees and the whisper of leaves in the breeze. Water played a vital role in these spaces. Fountains and pools reflected the sunlight, adding shimmer and life. The sound of flowing water was considered calming, an essential part of the garden's design. Some gardens even had small groves of fruit trees, fig, pomegranate, and apple, offering sweet rewards to those who wandered through. Leisure in Roman culture was not about frenzy or noise. It was about balance. The otium, a concept cherished by many, meant restful leisure, moments devoted to the mind and body's restoration. In the gardens, People read poetry, meditated, or simply watched clouds drift by. Conversations were soft and thoughtful, carried in the shade of pergolas or under the wide branches of plane trees. Roman writers often praised the garden as a place of inspiration and clarity. Cicero, for example, described the joy of walking through olive groves and listening to the wind. Virgil imagined the peaceful countryside as a place where worries faded. Even emperors found solace in gardens. Augustus had a famous garden retreat on the Palatine Hill, a place where he could rest away from the demands of power, beyond the private gardens. Rome itself was dotted with public green spaces, parks, groves, and gardens open to all. These places offered city dwellers a chance to breathe fresh air, walk quietly, and admire nature without leaving the urban heart. Many Romans enjoyed strolling through the horti, the grand gardens of wealthy families or emperors, sometimes opened to the public during special occasions. These vast spaces often included shaded avenues, ornamental pools, and elaborate sculptures. The careful design of these gardens reflected Roman values, harmony, order, and beauty. Paths curved gently to reveal new views. Statues stood quietly among flowers, and fountains provided gentle music. Gardens were also spaces of learning. Some contained rare plants brought from distant provinces, studied by scholars and herbalists. The knowledge of medicinal herbs was carefully passed down, linking nature to healing. Animals sometimes shared the gardens, too. Birds sang from trees. Fish swam in clear pools, and small animals roamed quietly among the bushes. In such calm surroundings, Romans found a perfect balance between human creativity and the natural world. Leisure time in these gardens could be as simple as sitting in silence, letting the mind wander, or it could include light activities, reading, writing letters, or discussing philosophy with friends. Roman poets often wrote about gardens as places where the soul could find rest. They imagined sitting beneath the shade of a fig tree, feeling the breeze and watching petals fall. These moments of stillness were precious in a busy world. The garden was a place where time slowed and worries melted away, and as dusk fell, the soft glow of oil lamps might light pathways, allowing quiet evening strolls beneath the stars. As the seasons changed, so too did the garden's colors and scents. Spring brought the delicate blush of cherry blossoms and the fresh green of new leaves. Summer filled the air with the heavy perfume of roses and jasmine. Autumn painted the trees in warm golds and reds, while winter offered a quieter beauty, evergreens and the steady rhythm of falling rain. Romans cherished these changes, often marking them with small rituals or gatherings. Friends might meet beneath blooming trees to share poetry or music. Gentle laughter mingled with the rustle of leaves, and the world seemed to hold its breath in peaceful harmony. Gardens were also places of art and craftsmanship. Marble statues of gods, heroes, and mythical creatures stood silently, their surfaces worn smooth by time and weather. Fountains, shaped like dolphins or lions, sent cool water spraying in delicate arcs. Trellises wrapped in vines created natural arches that invited slow, thoughtful passage. For many Romans, the garden was a living painting blend of human care and wild beauty, where the senses could rest and the spirit could roam. Even the simplest homes often had small courtyards or herb beds where families tended plants with quiet attention. Growing lavender for scent, basil for cooking, or mint for medicine was an act of love and patience. In these green refuges, time lost its urgency. Conversations slowed, footsteps softened, and hearts found a steady rhythm. The garden was a place where one could breathe deeply, letting worries slip away like petals on the wind. And so, as night falls on this ancient world, imagine yourself there seated on a cool stone bench, surrounded by the gentle chorus of nature, the scent of herbs and flowers filling the air, a place of calm, beauty, and rest. Roman gardens were also places where art and nature met in delicate balance. Sculptors carved elegant figures from marble, nymphs, gods, and mythical beasts that seemed to watch quietly over the shaded paths. These statues, softened by centuries of weather, blended with the greenery to create a seamless harmony between man-made beauty and natural grace. Water features played a central role. Small streams ran through gardens, guided by carefully placed stones, creating gentle babbling sounds that soothed the spirit. Pools reflected the sky and trees, their still surfaces broken only by the occasional ripple of a fish or falling leaf. Pergolas and trellises supported climbing vines of ivy, wisteria, and grape, their fragrant blooms softening the air. The Romans appreciated the changing seasons in their gardens, welcoming the first buds of spring and the golden hues of autumn with equal reverence. Gardeners worked with quiet dedication, pruning shrubs, planting new flowers, and tending herbs. Their work was an act of devotion, maintaining the delicate balance between order and wildness. In Roman leisure, the garden was a classroom and a stage. Poets read verses aloud beneath leafy canopies, while musicians played soft melodies on lyres and flutes. Philosophers and friends gathered for calm debates, their voices blending with the rustle of leaves and the distant call of birds. For many, the garden was a refuge, a space apart from the politics, noise, and pressures of city life. Here, in the embrace of nature, they found a moment of peace. The concept of otium, restful leisure, was embodied in these spaces. It was a time for reflection, for quiet joy, and for simple presence. Some gardens even had small temples or shrines dedicated to gods of nature or health, adding a spiritual dimension to the experience. As the sun moved across the sky, light filtered through leaves, casting playful shadows that shifted slowly. The scent of herbs and flowers deepened in the warmth, inviting deep breaths and calm thoughts. Even the birds seemed to sing softer songs here, as if knowing the garden's sacred quiet. When evening came, oil lamps flickered to life, casting gentle glows that made the marble statues shimmer softly. The air cooled, and night fragrances, jasmine, honeysuckle, filled the garden with new scents. Walking slowly along the paths, visitors felt the worries of the day fall away. Time became gentle, measured by the stars and the whisper of the breeze. Roman homes, architecture, rooms, and the gentle rhythm of domestic life. Imagine yourself stepping across the smooth threshold of a Roman home. The door swings open with a soft creak, and you are greeted not by noise, but by stillness. The sounds of the city, the chatter of markets, the clatter of wheels fade behind you. Inside, only the gentle echo of your own footsteps remains. This is a domus, a Roman house. The first room you enter is the atrium, a wide open space filled with light. A rectangular opening in the roof lets in the sun, and beneath it, a shallow pool called the impluvium collects rainwater, casting soft ripples of reflection on the stone walls around the atrium. Simple benches invite rest. On the walls hang painted frescoes, faded but elegant, telling stories of gods, heroes, or peaceful landscapes. The air smells faintly of burning olive oil and laurel leaves, with a quiet scent of clay and stone. In the corner, a small shrine to the household gods. The lares holds offerings of fruit and incense, a quiet ritual marking the beginning of morning routines. Past the atrium, a narrow hallway leads you deeper into the house, where each room seems to hum with a sense of calm. The tablinum comes next, a simple study space with a wooden writing table, scrolls neatly arranged on shelves, and a bronze lamp waiting to be lit at dusk. Here, a Roman might sit quietly, writing letters, reading philosophy, or simply watching the golden light as it moves across the floor. Soft fabrics hang from doorways instead of solid doors. They sway gently in the breeze, like silk curtains dividing the world into layers of quiet. Next, you enter the triclinium, the dining room. Low couches are arranged around a central table, and soft cushions invite guests to recline while eating. The walls are painted with scenes of gardens and birds. Sometimes there is music, but often silence is part of the ritual, a comfortable, welcomed stillness. The light dims naturally as you move through the home, and soft oil lamps flicker in the corners. Their glow touches the edges of polished bronze bowls, woven baskets. Everything feels as though it belongs. Beyond the triclinium lies the colinium, the kitchen. It is a modest space, warm and alive with the memory of meals. Clay pots hang neatly along the walls, their surfaces darkened from fire and time. A stone hearth sits at the center, still faintly warm. Bundles of dried herbs hang from the beams above, thyme, bay leaf, and mint, their scents softening the air. Here, meals are prepared with quiet care. Bread is kneaded gently on a wooden board, baked daily and shared by all. A measured, thoughtful pace that carries the day further into the home. These are private spaces, quiet and unadorned, their charm lying in simplicity. A bed rests low to the ground, layered with linen and wool. Beside it, a small chest holds personal belongings, a comb, a folded tunic, a clay oil lamp, in one corner. An open window lets in a breeze. The curtains flutter softly, and the distant sound of birds filters in from a garden beyond. These rooms are for rest, not just of the body, but of the soul. Here, one might nap in the afternoon sun, or lie awake in the gentle silence of night, watching the lamplight flicker against plastered walls. Many Roman homes opened into a small hortus, a private garden, simple and green. It held a few fruit trees, perhaps a fountain, and flowering plants that brought color and fragrance to the household. Children played here, parents sat quietly, birds came and went. This connection between house and nature, between stone and leaf, was deliberate. It allowed the home to breathe. The garden was part of the rhythm of daily life, just as vital as the dining room or kitchen. In each part of the home, time seemed to slow. Even the architecture encouraged stillness. Long corridors, balanced proportions, rooms opening into light. The Roman domus was not merely a shelter. It was a world within walls, a space for reflection, comfort, and peace. Even the sounds within the Roman home were soft. The creak of wooden shutters, the muffled steps across stone floors, the gentle clink of pottery being placed on a table. At dusk, a servant might light the oil lamps, one by one, casting golden halos in every room. The air would be still, touched only by the scent of warm bread and herbs carried from the kitchen. Evening in the domus was a sacred time, not in ritual, but in rhythm. Families gathered in the atrium or garden, sharing stories of the day. Laughter was light, never loud. Children listened, curled on cushions. Adults leaned against columns, hands wrapped around cups of warm wine. Sometimes music filled the space, a quiet flute, the soft strings of a lyra. Other times, only silence was needed. As the stars began to appear above the compluvium, the open roof of the atrium, the home became a vessel of calm. Shadows danced gently across the frescoed walls. The flame of the central lamp swayed with the air, steady and slow. The Roman home, in its essence, was a retreat from the chaos of the outside world. Its beauty lay not in opulence, but in harmony. In each room there was balance between space and stillness, light and shadow, solitude and community. Whether grand or humble, homes followed similar rhythms. They were places where water flowed calmly in basins, where wind moved gently through hanging curtains, and where people could simply be no matter what happened beyond its walls, in the Senate, on the streets, or in distant provinces. The home was constant. It was warmth, it was safety, it was peace. And so, as the last oil lamp flickers and the voices of the household fall silent, imagine yourself lying beneath a woven blanket, listening to the quiet of a Roman night. Outside, the moonlight rests on terracotta rooftops. Inside, all is still, and the gentle rhythm of life continues, slow and soft, through every corner of the domus. A day at the Roman theater. Stories, spectacles, and still moments. The day begins gently, with golden light stretching over the rooftops of Rome. Soft shadows move across cobbled streets, and the air is cool, touched by the scent of morning bread and distant incense. Today is not a day of labor or errands. Today is a day for theater. You step out of your home and into the quiet rhythm of the city. There is no rush, only the sound of sandals brushing the stone and voices murmuring with anticipation. All around you, people walk in the same direction, not hurriedly, but with a calm, shared purpose. As you move through shaded alleyways and sunlit plazas, you pass street vendors selling dates and warm pastries. Some offer cool wine in small clay cups. Others whisper the titles of the plays that will be performed: comedies, tragedies, tales of gods and men. The theater lies ahead, just beyond the curve of the road. You see it now, a great semicircle of stone rising into the sky. Columns stretch high, their marble faces catching the light. The entrance is wide, welcoming. As you step into the cool shade beneath its arches, the sounds of the city fade further behind you. Inside, Everything opens up. The cavea, the seating area, rises in wide curves, shaped like a soft embrace. The seats are worn smooth by time and use. You walk slowly up the steps, finding a place not too high, not too low, just enough to see everything, the orchestra. Below is quiet for now. Stage hands move with care, arranging props and testing curtains. The backdrop, the skene fronds, is carved with figures and columns, like a great story waiting to be told. You sit around you. People speak softly, neighbors, elders, families with children. There is no shouting, no urgency, only the rustle of fabric, the hush of expectation. A breeze flows gently through the open air above, carrying with it the faint perfume of nearby gardens and the soft cries of gulls circling above, and then, slowly, gracefully, the music begins. A flute sounds high and clear. A drum follows, steady and low, like the heartbeat of the stage. The crowd quiets. The actors step out from behind the curtain, their movements fluid, their voices trained to carry gently across the space. They speak not loudly, but with clarity. Every gesture is deliberate, every line a thread in a larger tapestry. You watch, your mind slowly drifting into the story. Asterisk, the actors wear masks, beautifully crafted, painted with soft tones of emotion. The wide eyes and curved mouths speak louder than words. They shift with the angle of light, casting gentle shadows over the actors' faces, creating mystery, then clarity, then mystery again. Their costumes flow as they move, dyed in earthy reds, muted blues, and soft creams. The fabric sways with each step across the stage, catching the light and folding like water. You lean back against the stone bench, letting the warmth of the day soak into your back as the story unfolds before you. It is not about surprise or thrill. It is about rhythm, cadence, and presence. Each scene is followed by a quiet pause. No applause, no shouting, only thoughtful silence as the audience breathes together, processing each word, each turn of fate. Children sit wide-eyed beside their mothers. Elderly men nod gently with recognition, as if hearing old truths spoken anew. Above you, a light cloud passes, softening the sun's rays. A bird lands on the edge of the colonnade, watching the audience with still curiosity. The play continues, a tale of longing, of loss, of wisdom gained through time. You are not just watching, you are within it. The air, the light, the sound, and silence, all are part of the story in one scene. An actor kneels beneath a painted olive tree, speaking of love that never fades. His voice trembles, but never breaks. The audience holds its breath, as if not to disturb the weight of the words. Then, slowly, the scene shifts again. Music rises, the flute returns, joined now by a lyre. The mood changes, lightning like dawn. A comedy begins to bloom, one laugh at a time, not loud or sudden, but warm and real. Smiles spread through the audience like ripples in water. There is a moment when you close your eyes, not from tiredness, but from peace. The sounds around you continue, sandals on stone, fabric brushing stone seats, the sigh of the breeze through marble arches. You are surrounded not by noise, but by presence. A world unfolding softly. Asterisk, as the final act draws near, the sun begins its descent. The golden light softens, casting long shadows across the stage. The marble columns glow, their edges traced in amber and rose. The story nears its end, not with shouts or spectacle, but with quiet resolution. Two figures stand on the stage, silhouetted against the fading sky. They speak the last lines, voices calm and steady. There is no rush, no need for grand gestures, only stillness, and when the final word is spoken, there is a moment of pure silence, not absence, but fullness, a breath held by all before being slowly released. Then the actors bow, not grandly, but with grace. The audience offers soft applause, not claps, but a gentle tapping of fingers on stone, like rain. It is enough. It is beautiful. You rise slowly, the stone seat warm beneath you. Around you, others do the same, gathering shawls, helping children to their feet, stretching arms and backs. No one hurries. The play has left its mark, a softness in the chest, a stillness in the eyes. You descend the steps with care, your footsteps echoing quietly in the open air. Outside, the sky is deepening into blue. Lamps are being lit along the streets, casting small halos of light on the walls. Vendors are packing up, offering last handfuls of nuts and fruit to those walking home. As you make your way back through the city, you carry the echoes of the day with you. The lines spoken, the music played, the hush of the crowd, the sun on stone, all linger in your mind like a quiet song. Back home, the door creaks gently open. You remove your sandals, light a small lamp, and sit for a moment in silence. There is nothing more you need today. You were reminded of the power of words, of presence, of stories told slowly and remembered forever. Asterisk. The Roman countryside, farms, fields, and quiet rural life. The morning sun rises slowly over rolling hills, dotted with olive trees and vineyards. A gentle breeze carries the fresh scent of damp earth and blooming wildflowers. The landscape stretches wide and calm, painted with shades of green and gold in this peaceful world. Life moves with the rhythm of the seasons and the steady work of hands tending soil and animals. The farmstead stands quietly among fields of barley and wheat, its simple stone buildings warmed by the early light. You walk along a narrow dirt path, feeling the soft crunch of gravel beneath your feet. Nearby, a small flock of sheep grazes lazily, their soft bleats blending with the chirping of birds and the rustling of leaves. The farmhouse opens into a shaded courtyard where a wooden cart rests beside a well. Pots of herbs, rosemary, thyme, and sage line the walls, their fragrances mingling in the warm air. A farmer, dressed in simple linen, moves steadily about. He checks the animals' goats and chickens, speaking to them softly. There is no hurry, only calm attentiveness. The daily routine is quiet but purposeful. At dawn, the animals are fed and watered. The fields are walked, crops inspected. Tools rest neatly beside the barn, ready for use in the nearby orchard. Fruit trees bend gently under the weight of ripening figs and apples. Bees buzz softly, moving from blossom to blossom, gathering nectar. The sun climbs higher, casting dappled shadows across the land. A cool stream winds through the valley, its water sparkling and clear, providing refreshment for both people and animals. At midday, the farmer pauses beneath a large oak tree, He sits on a smooth stone, wiping sweat from his brow, breathing deeply. The world around him is quiet, alive with gentle sounds and soft colors. Asterisk as the day unfolds. The sounds of the countryside create a gentle symphony, the low murmur of the wind through tall grasses, the occasional call of a distant hawk, and the soft rustle of leaves stirred by a passing breeze. Every sound feels part of a natural rhythm, calming and steady. Children play quietly near the farmhouse, their laughter light and unhurried. They chase each other around olive trees and hide behind stacked hay bales, their bare feet brushing the cool earth. Their simple games echo the timeless joy of youth in a world untouched by rush. Inside the home, a woman kneads dough for bread, her hands moving in a slow, practiced rhythm. The scent of baking bread from rafters, lavender, mint, and oregano. Nearby, a cat lounges lazily in a sunbeam, its eyes half closed in contentment. The farmstead is surrounded by fields where crops grow tall and steady. Rows of wheat sway gently, bending with the breeze like golden waves. In the distance, grapevines climb trellises, their leaves rustling softly as small birds flit through. Farming tools lie ready. A wooden plow rests against the barn wall. A woven basket waits patiently for the harvest. The work is hard, but the pace is deliberate, matched to the earth's natural timing. As afternoon light softens, the farmer inspects the fields again, walking slowly to ensure the health of his crops. Each plant, each leaf is given attention. This care reflects a deep connection to the land, a respect born from generations. Nearby, a shepherd watches over his flock, moving gently among sheep resting in the shade. The animals seem calm, familiar with the rhythm of the day. Occasionally, a lamb rises to play, its tiny hooves tapping softly on the soil. As the sun dips lower, shadows stretch long across the landscape. The sky paints itself in soft hues of pink and orange, reflecting the peaceful end of the day. In these quiet moments, the world feels balanced, a place where nature and people live in gentle harmony. Asterisk as evening approaches, the sounds soften even further. Crickets begin their steady chorus, blending with the distant lowing of cattle settling down for the night. The air cools gently, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and flowering herbs. Families gather outside their homes, sharing simple meals beneath the vast expanse of the twilight sky. The fading light casts long shadows across the fields, and the first stars begin to twinkle faintly overhead. Children rest in the arms of their parents or lie quietly on blankets spread over soft grass, gazing upward at the emerging constellations. Their breath rises and falls in the calm night air, blending with the gentle rustle of leaves. The farmer and his wife sit side by side, their faces softened by the warm glow of a small fire. Their conversation is low, filled with quiet gratitude for the day's work and hope for tomorrow's blessings. In the distance, a lone owl calls softly, its hoot carrying across the stillness. The night enfolds the countryside like a protective blanket, bringing rest to all creatures beneath the sky. The farmhouse grows silent as one by one, lanterns are extinguished and eyelids close. Even the animals settle peacefully, lulled by the steady heartbeat of the earth. In this place, life follows the gentle cycles of nature: birth, growth, rest, and renewal. The days are measured not by clocks or calendars, but by the sun's path and the whisper of the wind. Asterisk here, in the Roman countryside, time slows, the world softens, and in this softness, peace is found. Asterisk, as night deepens, the countryside rests under a canopy of stars. The gentle glow of the moon casts silver light across the fields and rooftops. Shadows mingle with moonbeams, creating a tapestry of soft shapes and muted colors. In the farmhouse, the hearth crackles quietly, sending flickering light across the walls. The family sleeps peacefully, wrapped in woven blankets made from sheep's wool, their breaths slow and even. Outside, the land seems to breathe. The gentle rustling of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl remind all that life continues even in rest. The soil holds the warmth of the day, ready to nurture the seeds of tomorrow. The cycle of nature flows silently but surely, linking past and future in an endless embrace. Morning will come again, bringing with it the promise of new tasks and quiet joys. The farmer will rise with the sun, greeting the day with steady hands and a calm heart. The fields will shimmer with dew, and the animals will stir softly in their pens. Life here is simple, but rich, a tapestry woven from moments of care, patience, and quiet strength. In this gentle rhythm, there is a deep sense of belonging to the earth, to the seasons, to a way of life that honors the slow unfolding of time. The Roman countryside, with its farms, fields, and peaceful homes, offers a timeless sanctuary. Here, one can find rest not only for the body, but for the spirit. It is a place to breathe deeply, to listen closely, and to remember that in stillness there is beauty. The Roman countryside, farms, fields, and quiet rural life. The morning sun rises slowly over rolling hills, dotted with olive trees and vineyards. A gentle breeze carries the fresh scent of damp earth and blooming wildflowers. The landscape stretches wide and calm, painted with shades of green and gold. In this peaceful world, life moves with the rhythm of the seasons and the steady work of hands tending soil and animals. The farmstead stands quietly among fields of barley and wheat, its simple stone buildings warmed by the early light. You walk along a narrow dirt path, feeling the soft crunch of gravel beneath your feet. Nearby, a small flock of sheep grazes lazily, their soft bleats blending with the chirping of birds and the rustling of leaves. The farmhouse opens into a shaded courtyard where a wooden cart rests beside a well. Pots of herbs, rosemary, thyme, and sage line the walls, their fragrances mingling in the warm air. A farmer, dressed in simple linen, moves steadily about. He checks the animals' goats and chickens, speaking to them softly. There is no hurry, only calm attentiveness. The daily routine is quiet but purposeful. At dawn, the animals are fed and watered. The fields are walked, crops inspected. Tools rest neatly beside the barn, ready for use in the nearby orchard. Fruit trees bend gently under the weight of ripening figs and apples. Bees buzz softly, moving from blossom to blossom, gathering nectar. The sun climbs higher, casting dappled shadows across the land. A cool stream winds through the valley, its water sparkling and clear, providing refreshment for both people and animals. At midday, the farmer pauses beneath a large oak tree. He sits on a smooth stone, wiping sweat from his brow, breathing deeply. The world around him is quiet, alive with gentle sounds and soft colors. Asterisk as the day unfolds. The sounds of the countryside create a gentle symphony, the low murmur of the wind through tall grasses, the occasional call of a distant hawk, and the soft rustle of leaves stirred by a passing breeze. Every sound feels part of a natural rhythm, calming and steady. Children play quietly near the farmhouse, their laughter light and unhurried. They chase each other around olive trees and hide behind stacked hay bales, their bare feet brushing the cool earth. Their simple games echo the timeless joy of youth in a world untouched by rush. Inside the home, a woman kneads dough for bread, her hands moving in a slow, practiced rhythm. The scent of baking bread from rafters, lavender, mint, and oregano. Nearby, a cat lounges lazily in a sunbeam, its eyes half closed in contentment. The farmstead is surrounded by fields where crops grow tall and steady. Rows of wheat sway gently, bending with the breeze like golden waves. In the distance, grapevines climb trellises, their leaves rustling softly as small birds flit through. Farming tools lie ready. A wooden plow rests against the barn wall. A woven basket waits patiently for the harvest. The work is hard, but the pace is deliberate, matched to the earth's natural timing. As afternoon light softens, the farmer inspects the fields again, walking slowly to ensure the health of his crops. Each plant, each leaf is given attention. This care reflects a deep connection to the land, a respect born from generations. Nearby, a shepherd watches over his flock, moving gently among sheep resting in the shade. The animals seem calm, familiar with the rhythm of the day. Occasionally, a lamb rises to play, its tiny hooves tapping softly on the soil. As the sun dips lower, shadows stretch long across the landscape. The sky paints itself in soft hues of pink and orange, reflecting the peaceful end of the day. In these quiet moments, the world feels balanced, a place where nature and people live in gentle harmony. Asterisk as evening approaches, the sounds soften even further. Crickets begin their steady chorus, blending with the distant lowing of cattle settling down for the night. The air cools gently, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and flowering herbs. Families gather outside their homes, sharing simple meals beneath the vast expanse of the twilight sky. The fading light casts long shadows across the fields, and the first stars begin to twinkle faintly overhead. Children rest in the arms of their parents or lie quietly on blankets spread over soft grass, gazing upward at the emerging constellations. Their breath rises and falls in the calm night air, blending with the gentle rustle of leaves. The farmer and his wife sit side by side, their faces softened by the warm glow of a small fire. Their conversation is low, filled with quiet gratitude for the day's work and hope for tomorrow's blessings. In the distance, a lone owl calls softly, its hoot carrying across the stillness. The night enfolds the countryside like a protective blanket, bringing rest to all creatures beneath the sky. The farmhouse grows silent as one by one, lanterns are extinguished and eyelids close. Even the animals settle peacefully, lulled by the steady heartbeat of the earth. In this place, life follows the gentle cycles of nature: birth, growth, rest, and renewal. The days are measured not by clocks or calendars, but by the sun's path and the whisper of the wind. Asterisk here, in the Roman countryside, time slows, the world softens, and in this softness, peace is found. Asterisk, as night deepens, the countryside rests under a canopy of stars. The gentle glow of the moon casts silver light across the fields and rooftops. Shadows mingle with moonbeams, creating a tapestry of soft shapes and muted colors. In the farmhouse, the hearth crackles quietly, sending flickering light across the walls. The family sleeps peacefully, wrapped in woven blankets made from sheep's wool, their breaths slow and even. Outside, the land seems to breathe. The gentle rustling of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl remind all that life continues even in rest. The soil holds the warmth of the day, ready to nurture the seeds of tomorrow. The cycle of nature flows silently but surely, linking past and future in an endless embrace. Morning will come again, bringing with it the promise of new tasks and quiet joys. The farmer will rise with the sun, greeting the day with steady hands and a calm heart. The fields will shimmer with dew, and the animals will stir softly in their pens. Life here is simple, but rich, a tapestry woven from moments of care, patience, and quiet strength. In this gentle rhythm, there is a deep sense of belonging to the earth, to the seasons, to a way of life that honors the slow unfolding of time. The Roman countryside, with its farms, fields, and peaceful homes, offers a timeless sanctuary. Here, one can find rest not only for the body, but for the spirit. It is a place to breathe deeply, to listen closely, and to remember that in stillness there is beauty. The Roman library, scrolls, scholars, and the whisper of wisdom. The Roman library stands quietly, a sanctuary of knowledge nestled amidst the bustling city. Its tall columns and ornate doors invite a calm breath, a step into a world where words float gently through the air like whispers. Inside, the scent of aged parchment and polished wood mingles softly, soothing and familiar. Rows upon rows of scrolls, carefully tied and stacked, line the shelves in perfect order. The light filters through high windows, casting a warm glow on marble floors and the delicate frescoes adorning the walls. Scholars move slowly between aisles, their footsteps hushed against the stone. Some sit at wooden desks, quills poised lightly above parchment, capturing thoughts that will outlast generations. Others read silently, eyes tracing letters in a quiet dance of understanding. The quiet of the library wraps around you like a gentle embrace as you step through its grand doorway. The soft echo of your footsteps mingles with the faint rustle of parchment and the occasional scratch of a quill on paper. Time seems to slow within these walls, inviting calm reflection and focused thought. The air is warm but not stifling, filled with the subtle aroma of aged scrolls and polished wood. Light pours in through tall, narrow windows, casting elongated beams that dance softly across marble floors and delicate frescoes depicting scenes of wisdom and learning. Rows of wooden shelves rise gracefully, laden with scrolls, carefully rolled and tied with thin leather strips. Each one is a treasure trove of knowledge, histories, poetry, philosophy, and laws preserved by the hands of dedicated scribes. At a large table near the center, a scholar leans over his work. His face is serene, eyes focused as he copies. Letters from one scroll to another, preserving words for future generations. The quill moves rhythmically, dipping gently into ink pots placed neatly by his side, nearby. Another reader sits on a cushioned bench, eyes closed for a moment, as if savoring the silent wisdom that fills the room. He breathes slowly, letting the quiet seep deep into his mind. The soft flicker of oil lamps scattered through the room adds a warm glow, softening the shadows and making the space feel both ancient and alive. As you walk further, you notice the intricate mosaics decorating the floor, scenes of the muses and great thinkers of Rome, their faces calm and thoughtful. The walls are adorned with painted scrolls and inscriptions, reminding visitors of the power of knowledge and the importance of learning. Every sound here is gentle, the turning of a scroll, the faint tapping of a stylus, the quiet murmur of scholars discussing ideas in low voices. There is no hurry, no distraction, only the steady pulse of wisdom being passed from one mind to another. A narrow staircase leads to a small balcony overlooking the main hall. From here, you can see the entire room, the careful order of scrolls, the scholars immersed in study, and the interplay of light and shadow that makes this place feel almost sacred. You take a deep breath and feel a profound calm settle within you, a sense of connection to centuries of thought and learning, moving gently through the aisles. You observe the care with which each scroll is handled. The scholars treat them as precious artifacts, understanding that each contains the voice of the past. Some scrolls are worn with age, edges frayed and ink faded, yet they still hold their stories, patiently waiting to be read again. A soft murmur rises from a small group gathered in a corner. They speak in hushed tones about philosophy, the ideas of Cicero, Seneca, and others, weaving their thoughts carefully, respecting the silence of the space. You pause to admire a beautifully illustrated manuscript, its pages filled with delicate drawings of gods and heroes. The colors, though faded, still speak of the skill and devotion poured into its creation. The scent of beeswax from the oil lamps mingles with the earthy smell of parchment, creating an atmosphere of quiet reverence. At a sturdy oak table near a window, a young apprentice carefully copies text, his brow furrowed in concentration. An older scholar watches over him, offering gentle guidance. Their shared dedication reflects the passing of knowledge from one generation to the next, a continuous thread in the fabric of history. Occasionally, the quiet is punctuated by the soft scrape of a stylus on wax tablets, where notes are made to complement the scrolls. The rhythm is soothing, like a gentle heartbeat within the stillness. Sunlight shifts slowly through the day, casting changing patterns on the floor. The calm space remains a haven, a place where minds can wander through ideas, free from the distractions of the outside world. In one corner, a small group reads poetry aloud in soft voices. Their tones rise and fall with the rhythm of the verses, creating a melody that blends seamlessly with the ambient sounds of turning pages and soft footsteps. You find yourself drawn to a section dedicated to natural philosophy, scrolls filled with observations of stars, plants, and animals hint at the curiosity and wonder that have always fueled human knowledge. The library is more than a building. It is a living archive of human thought, a place where the whispers of wisdom echo through the ages. As the afternoon deepens, a gentle quiet settles over the library. A few scholars rise from their seats, stretching their hands and faces, feeling the calm that comes from long hours of contemplation. The light softens as the sun lowers in the sky, casting a golden glow through the tall windows. In a secluded corner, an elderly librarian carefully tends to the scrolls, dusting shelves and ensuring each is returned to its proper place. His movements are slow and deliberate, full of reverence for the knowledge entrusted to him. The weight of centuries seems to press gently in the room, as if the very walls breathe history and wisdom. Each scroll, each parchment carries the lives and thoughts of countless minds, a testament to humanity's endless search for understanding. A young woman sits nearby, her eyes bright as she pores over a text of poetry. Her fingers trace the faded ink, connecting with the words of a distant poet. She reads softly, letting the verses wash over her like a gentle stream, finding solace and inspiration. The quiet murmur of scholarly voices rises briefly as a new visitor enters, a student eager to learn, clutching fresh parchment and ink. The elders welcome him with kind smiles, ready to guide another seeker on the path of knowledge. Outside, the city continues its bustling life, but inside the library, time seems to slow, wrapping all within in a cocoon of calm reflection. As dusk approaches, oil lamps are lit, their soft glow illuminating the shelves and casting warm shadows. The flickering light adds a sense of intimacy, turning the library into a sanctuary of quiet thought. You find a comfortable spot near the window, watching the evening settle over the city. The library remains alive with the steady rhythm of study, a peaceful harbor amid the vast ocean of time. Here, in this timeless place, the whispers of wisdom continue to echo, soft, steady, and enduring. Asterisk, as night deepens outside, the library transforms under the gentle glow of oil lamps. Shadows dance softly across the shelves, and the quiet rustle of turning scrolls mingles with the distant murmur of the city settling into rest. A small group gathers near the central table, engaged in a quiet debate over philosophy and ethics. Their voices are low and measured, filled with respect and curiosity. The exchange is not a contest, but a shared journey toward understanding. You observe a scholar carefully copying a text by candlelight, his hands steady despite the fading hour. The delicate strokes of his quill speak of patience and devotion, an unspoken promise that knowledge will endure. In another corner, a poet recites verses softly, weaving words into gentle melodies that seem to float effortlessly through the air. The listeners close their eyes, letting the cadence and rhythm carry them away from the worries of the day. The air is filled with the scent of beeswax, ink, and old paper, a fragrance that feels timeless, linking the present moment with the past. The library is a sanctuary not only for knowledge, but for the soul, a place where quiet minds can find solace and inspiration amid the flickering light and endless scrolls. As the night deepens further, scholars begin to prepare to leave. They roll their scrolls carefully, exchanging quiet farewells and nods of respect. The librarian gently extinguishes lamps, one by one, leaving the space bathed in the soft glow of moonlight filtering through the windows. You take a final look around the room, the shelves stretching into shadow, the empty benches waiting for tomorrow's visitors. There is a profound stillness here, a reminder that wisdom endures through time and silence. Stepping outside, you feel the cool night air on your face. The city sleeps, but the library remains, a quiet beacon of light, knowledge, and calm.